Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm honoured and privileged today to be joined by a three-time Olympian, Greg Cackett, who has also raced with Usain Bolt. So thank you so much for becoming a guest and being a guest. Really, really honoured.
My
So
pleasure.
tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into be an elite athlete, an Olympian?
So yeah, firstly, thank you for having me, Stephen. It's an honor to be
Pleasure.
invited anywhere for anyone wanting my time or the absolute waffle that comes out of my mouth. It's always a privilege for me to listen to my own voice. So I obviously we met at the London Sports Awards a few weeks ago, which was great, and it's wonderful doing those sorts of events because you get to meet all sorts of people, network with all sorts of people, and then end up on on a podcast like this, and never would have happened otherwise. So it's great to chat. So I get to speak to people far and wide. It's wonderful. But as for my career, very topsy turvy. So I was a pub chef, and I wasn't spotted sporting wise until I was about 20, 21. I was very fast when I was young. So when I was sort of 10 years old, I was a very, very quick, fast running kid, but it was useful for football, and no teachers ever got hold of me and said, go to athletics club and all this sort of thing. That just wasn't really a supported thing when I was growing up. It wasn't Sport was something that other kids did, and it's an unrealistic aspiration sort of thing. So it just kind of fell by the wayside. And through school, I became more about music and writing, and those are my passions now. So, which I don't regret. That's wonderful. I'm so pleased. Like I can play instruments, and I love to write, and I have another aspect to my kind of life and character. I suppose is a, is a slightly wanky way of putting it. But I found my way into sport late. I was due to go to America on a football scholarship. I was pretty rubbish at football. I was just fast, couldn't hit a barn door. But luckily, my scholarship was in America, and they can't hit barn doors either. So I looked like Messi out there. I was due to go just wipe out an entire part of your audience. There go, I'm gonna go American footballers. But no, I was due to go out there. It was a really good college, a really good coach, and I was really excited to do it. But it was the year of the Icelandic ash cloud. I'd bumped into Alan Wells's wife, Margot Wells, who's a phenomenal coach in her own right, was coaching a lot of professional rugby players. She sort of identified that I seemed to have ability. I was quite a muscle bound young lad then, sort of. That's why I went to my local track at Guildford Spectrum to work on my speed because I wanted to go out to America to meet my team, like sharp and ready to go. And she bumped into me and it was a totally innocuous conversation to begin with about a training app she was developing. And then she showed me a couple of things. And I just always had this real what if with athletics, with sprinting because I always felt I'd slip through the net, and I always felt I didn't start playing football again until I was about 16, 17, and I was just quick again. And all those lads I grew up playing football with up till I was about 10 or 11, when I started playing football again at 16, 17, they're like, we thought, you were, we didn't know you could still run. We didn't know you were still fast. And like, I think playing football again kicked my legs into gear again, but whatever dormant ability was in there hadn't gone anywhere. Years of sitting at a piano and guitar hadn't completely diminished those muscle fibers, thankfully. And Yeah, I got training with her. The Icelandic ash cloud went up, grounded my flight to America, and I just kind of that big what if was just kind of the rest of history, really. And I started training with her after a few months. Went from running, I think my first attempt at 100 meters was 11.5, which wouldn't have ranked me in the top 1,000 in the country. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm 21 now. Maybe this is too late for me. I was hoping maybe going 10.9 or something like that with no training. That would indicate, ability. I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. I just that's what I reckoned being absolute know nothing. But a few months later, I ran 10.4, and so I'd improved by over 10 meters, and suddenly I was one of the top ranked under 23s in the country, and it took off from there. And then after about a year, I moved across to Linford Christie, who, and obviously you all know well, casual name drop there, but he was wonderful. He took me to the next level. So with Linford, I ran 10.2 consistently. I signed with Puma. That was when I raced Bolt. That was all these things were kind of happening for me within a short space of time. This was all before my just after my 23rd birthday, I think. So in less than 3 years, I'd gone from being absolutely nowhere, pub chef, due to go to an American football scholarship, to then lined up next to Usain Bolt, the fastest man in history, in a GB vest, signing with Puma, and it just completely, my life just turned around. So it was wild. And then I got injured. And then between 2014 and 2016, so 2014, the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow was what I was aiming for when I started. I was like, that felt realistic. Within 3-4 years, let's see if I can get to that level. And I was on the long list for the team for England. And then 2014 just had a spate of injuries. Couldn't get my mojo, couldn't get back into that running. And I think I was a little impatient. I tried to switch to decathlon in 2015. I don't know what I was thinking. Linford had always he said to me, I don't know what you're doing. And I was like, neither do I. But I just, again, this what if I was like, I've got the speed. If I can learn the other events, I could be a really good decathlete. I was obsessed with just being the best at everything. And obviously got horrendously injured doing that, as you do, as any multi-eventer will attest to, especially multi-eventers who don't know what they're doing. And anyway, 2016 rolled around. I started sprinting, back to sprinting, ran fast again, and then I was hoping I'd go to the Rio Olympics. And then I pulled up with a hamstring injury just before the Olympic trials at a race in Portugal. And from there, I was just like, this is just, it feels too cruel. Like, yes, I made a bad decision in 2015 to go for decathlon, but until then, the 3-year build up, it felt like, what was it all for? I got shown this, if you're running faster than 10.4, 10.3, 10.2, like, you've got real ability. Like, you can probably, the margins get smaller and it gets much more difficult to get to like the 10 flat, sub 10 area, but you've got the ability to get there. You've just got to work it out, and you've got to be patient, and you've got to deal with the injuries that come when you're pushing your body to that red line. And it was difficult for me to kind of do that. I had a bit of an immature, I didn't know how I was doing what I was doing, and I probably gave up too soon with the sprinting side of things. However, it was when you, as track and field athletes all know, you do all your work through the winter. That's where your bases are built. And then when you come out in the summer and race and pull a hamstring and don't make a team, then it's all for nothing. You got to wait for the next year. So it's a pretty savage, brutal existence, especially when you're at that next cusp, next level up to get to the funded level and to get your paid contracts and all these sorts of things. My contract was kit and bonuses. So I was great. I was covered in Puma kit, and the bonuses would be great, but I wasn't running fast enough to get the results to earn those bonuses. So it was just not, it wasn't where it needed to be for me to make that next step. And then basically I saw in 2016, after the Rio Olympics fell away from me, the British bobsleigh team was having tryouts, and I knew a couple of sprinters who were in the bobsleigh team. One of them, Joel Fearon, was running sub 10 at the time. He was actually the UK #1 sprinter, I think, at the time. I think he ran it just slightly too late to go to Rio himself, but he was a bobsledder. And so I was like, well, he's not running slower, so maybe I could, if I'm good at bobsleigh, which is where a lot of sprinters make that sideways move, maybe I could get my career back on track, and do like a dual athlete thing, sprint in the summer, bobsleigh in the winter. There's an Olympics in 2018, get my confidence back, get my mojo back. And that was kind of the goal. And then I just fell in love with bobsleigh. And that was, again, another rest is history moment. I just thought, I don't need to burden myself with worrying about sprinting anymore. I'm good at bobsleigh. I love bobsleigh. I'm much more suited to the team environment than I am to the single-minded kind of selfish environment. I like having accountability to my teammates. I like supporting people. I like being in an environment where you can raise the standard around you and not just your own standard. And I just, and that's not through, I always say this, and it's not through being, some sort of bobsleigh Gandhi. It's just being, I just enjoy, I get my energy from other people. I need that buzz, and I need that, and I need to know that I'm having a positive impact on people and things like that. It's what motivates me. It's what gets me going. So yeah, it suited me a lot more. And then 3 Olympics later, again, that was pretty much, I think, the nutshell whistle stop tour of my career, with some nice
Blimey.
on the way,
Okay.
but that was pretty much where we are.
Right, loads and loads to unpick. So thank you for sharing it. Mindset to me, I'm curious how. Start from the beginning. None of your teachers on the sporting side really supported you. So obviously, very good at music, very good artist and all of that. But your dream of actually wanting to go to America and being wanted, how did that make you feel? And how do you overcome it?
Sorry, in what set, in terms of?
Just if you would have had a really supportive teacher at the start, maybe you would have got to your dream a lot sooner.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting one, that, because it's not like my teachers were dismissive of me, or like I was turning up and going, I want to run, how do I do this? And they went, nah, give it up, go do something else. It just wasn't promoted. So even my more sporty primary school teachers, it was just, they just were really proud to have me. So I was just useful because I'd win all the races for district sports and all the local primary schools and everything. But none of them ever collared me and said, go to an athletics club, go and learn how to actually move. It was just kind of like, oh, Greg's just doing this, and that's fine. And that's fine. Like I grew up in a very big school, big state school, like, it was 30 kids in a class. Like, they don't necessarily have the time to be picking on every little person to be doing certain things. So maybe I just fell through the net there as well. But yeah, it was more, my parents were much more, I mean, my dad wasn't. My dad would have been more trades focused, but my mum was very academically focused, and with pulling her hair out that I was not academically focused in the slightest. Like I wasn't not capable. I was just completely apathetic, bone idle. I'm very, and unfortunately, I'm sad to say, I'm kind of like this to this day. If it doesn't interest me, I just won't do it. I'll just zone out. I've never kind of really maturely grasped that certain things you need to do to get to the next thing, and it's why I think I never did a degree. Well, I started doing a degree in 2010, blagged my way into Roehampton University off the back of me starting running, and I thought, yeah, I'm motivated now. I'm 21, mature student. This will be great. It won't be like my A levels. And 1 week in, I was like, well, lectures are optional, aren't they? And just not turning up. I got through my first year, and then that was that. No, I sacked it because it was just too much superfluous module-based things you have to learn. I just wasn't interested in, not mature enough to suffer through that. I wanted to kind of do the things I wanted to do. Not advocating for that to anybody at all. I've managed to fall on my feet because I'm incredibly lucky. But I just, yeah, I think it's more when I was younger. I think, like I said, in my local area and where I grew up, it was kind of, no, sport is, it was the same for my parents. Sport is viewed as an aspiration that other people do, not, and do for a job. It's not for you. It's not for our, from like a little village in Surrey. You need to get a job and you need to get a trade or you need to get a degree and all these sorts of, this is the package that you have to do. And if you deviate from that, and I think I rebelled from that constantly. I'm a horrendous contrarian, and I was always wanting to rebel from what people were telling me to do. And I think a big part of that was because I just didn't, I wanted to find my own path. I just didn't have the vocabulary then for what that path would be. I didn't know what that path would be. And it turned out the path was sport. I just didn't know at the time. So I think it was more a case of, it did hamstring me. Pardon the pun, to be honest, because those are the injuries I had to begin with as well. But it did hamstring me as I started out, because I spent every day. I mean, we hear tons of stuff in business and whatever about, imposter syndrome, and all those moments of feeling like a fraud and like you shouldn't be there and stuff. And I definitely felt that going into sport. I felt totally like I didn't belong. And, I was 21 and all my peers, everyone I was competing against, my age group, under 23, I did 1 year of under 23. That age group were all junior internationals together. So they'd all competed together since they were 14, 15, 16. Like they've been wearing the GB flag since they were kids. They knew they had that sense of belonging, whereas I was the outsider coming in. I used to look at my legs, my body, and be like, can this body actually do this? Can this body run under 10 seconds? Can this body run? As it turned out, it couldn't. Hey. But it got down close.
10.2 is not bad.
No, I nearly got there. And I still believe I was physically capable of doing it. I didn't have, I think, the talent level of the guys who do hit that. And I think I would always say I obviously had I had a degree of talent, of genetic ability to be able to run those speeds and to be able to do the things I do, like even bobsleigh. That I weigh 20 kilos less than most of the people I'm competing against, and I bat above my weight all the time. So I've always had a genetic fast twitch explosive ability, but I think that with sprinting, there's such a technical element to it, to getting to those last few moments. And I think where there was this deep inherent belief that I could do this thing, but somewhere in there was this niggling doubt that actually I didn't. And I thought that, every time I raised the bar and I was like, oh, right, well, I've run 10.3 now. That's amazing. Wow. Oh God, I've run 10.2. Oh my God. Like I can do it. It was almost like disbelief, because I actually, whilst I hoped I could do it, part of me just thought that next level, I didn't know if I could. And that was probably part born out of coming to it so late and feeling like I was somebody who was, just I wasn't one of them. I wasn't a junior international. I wasn't the one in the training groups. They'll talk about talented people. Oh, they're the truth. They're the talent. They're this, they're that. And I was just kind of sitting there twiddling my thumbs being like, well, I hope I'm good as well. And it did, I think, of a level, like it took me a long time. Potentially into my 30s, and as a more established bobsledder, to really believe and know my worth as an athlete and what I could actually do and what I could actually achieve. I just found it in bobsleigh in the end. And that was, like I said, again, why I give bobsleigh such credit for, giving me a second home for this late in life sporting dream.
So what did bobsleigh do differently then to help you overcome imposter syndrome? Because there's loads of people, you're right, in everyday walks of life that have imposter syndrome. So, what tips would you share with people to overcome that syndrome?
I think with bobsleigh, it's and winter sports anyway. It was well, I was good at it, so I was, and that helps. It helps being good at something. But I think I felt that I was good at something that, um, like I said, I think it was this team environment thing. It was still this place where I felt I had shared responsibility, that it wasn't totally on my shoulders to win or lose at this thing. And that's not in a way where I was kind of, oh, this feels better because I don't have so much responsibility anymore. It was more whenever I think a lot of people probably would resonate with it. It's this whole thing. It's a bit like self talk, right? If you're going through a shitty time and you're really struggling, and your best mate was having the same situation, a lot of people probably find that they would speak to their best mate very differently to how they speak to themselves. They don't necessarily speak to themselves like their best friend, right? They don't go, come on, Greg, like you can do, like, because you feel like, I don't know, you feel like arrogant, or you feel weird to do that, or it doesn't feel right. Whereas if it was your best mate and they were struggling, you'd be like, come on, like, you'd identify all of their quirks, all of their strengths, all of their, all of it, and you'd make them feel $1 million, and you'd shove them off into the world and say, right, go and achieve. But you don't do it to yourself. And I think with bobsleigh, I felt that I was now in an environment where I could do that. I could do that for other people, and I could get that lift from it as well. So I didn't have to just be insular. And there are moments of when you're insular, and when we go through selections and that single man pushing and things like that, you are you against everybody else, and you have to show that you're worthy as an athlete. So I still got to dip my toe in that individual competitor thing, which is what I came from, and where I was good at. And I was a very proud competitor. I love to compete. I love to race. I love to be the best. All these sorts of things. I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit here, but I had all that stuff. But that was kind of, if that was kind of filling up my cup, that was kind of the bottom part. The bigger portion of it was the ability to lift other people and share that accountability. My approach to others allowed me to kind of take the total spotlight off myself and allow me to, now whether that's mentally healthy or not, I don't know. But I was certainly in a position where I felt like that, to me, that shared experience of success was so much more worthwhile than the individual. And and I don't know, I think it gave me probably a sense of confidence and responsibility that I didn't have in sprinting. And particularly in sprinting, I came from nowhere. This is probably more of a route to it as well. I was a pub chef, came into all these people who were already pros, already internationals, junior or otherwise, and I felt like the fraud. Whereas when I came into bobsleigh, I was a 10.2 second sprinter. I was one of the higher caliber athletes. So I was kind of like, I felt a bit more like I brought more to the party. I was a bit more confident in myself of what I brought to this thing. Um, so I had a stronger foundation of confidence to work off. So I think extrapolating that out to people who, you know, want to take some learnings from that experience, I think one of the big things for me, and as I reflect on it now, literally live action as I'm speaking on it, it's sometimes a perspective shift can show you your true value. So when you can get so stuck in your rut and your world and your blinkers on of, this is the thing that I need to be really, really good at. There's been tons of research about, like, divergent thinking and people in other walks of life bringing something to an industry or a workplace that's nothing to do with it, but because their ability to think outside those echo chambers, they can end up doing very, very well. And from a personal perspective thing, when I came into bobsleigh as a sprinter, I had all this perspective as a speed and power athlete, but I also had this kind of confidence that actually I was bringing something to make something, to make the parts of the whole bigger and better. So I think perspective shift when you're stuck in that rut of thinking this is just the be all and end all, and yeah, and getting yourself pulled and spiraling down into that sort of thing. Perspective shift and recognizing your value, the good work you've done to get to where you are, and that you actually bring an awful lot to the party. It's not easy, and I was lucky because I had bobsleigh to highlight that to me. But if you can find a way to hack that in your industry, and that might be by doing something different, by getting into a new hobby, or by moving department, or whatever it might be, uh, it's a curious thing, but it worked.
So something you said before you went to America, you talked about you wanted to be sharp and ready to go.
Mm.
Um, so, I say there's a saying, professionals practice before they play. Um, obviously you don't just turn up and just think it's going to
Yeah.
be really easy. I'm going to run against Usain Bolt and, I'm going to beat him. You're practicing, you're practicing, you're practicing.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to people that, just to get started, practicing, to get better in whatever they're looking to do, and why practice is so important, to be sharp and ready to go?
Yeah, well, actually, I can speak on this on a number of levels because obviously I'm coming to the end of my career. I'm toying with doing one more year or two more years, maybe no more years. But a big thing is transition out of sport and what comes next for me. So I'm literally living this right now. There's a lot of career transition things you can go into in the corporate work environment or other workplace type things. And I need to do something like that to pay the mortgage whilst I'm chasing the new dream. But for me, I'm a passionate writer. Always have been. I fell in love with screenwriting and script writing a couple of years ago, and it's the only thing I want to do. It's the only thing I want to do. And film and TV, however that works out, storylining, scripting, building worlds, storytelling. It's something I've always done. I've loved doing. When I do all my public speaking engagements, it's all about storytelling and things like that. So I absolutely love it. So I'm literally living this thing right now and taking this, my athlete determination, the Olympic mindset to figure this out because it's a very closed door industry. It's very who you know. And outside of that, it's also, you've got to be good enough. Because as you probably can attest to on your TV, but on your telly box, there's a lot of shite coming out there. But there's also a lot of stuff that doesn't seem very good, but it's not necessarily the fault of the writers or create. You realize people stick their hands in and change things and stuff like that. But ultimately, you've got to be able to keep going. You've got to be able to take the disappointment and the setbacks. And where I'm very lucky, certainly in a creative endeavor, is that I'm very, very thick skinned. So I can take an absolute feedback savaging and dare I say, enjoy it. And I say that carefully because like some weird masochistic sort of situation. I am just obsessed with getting better. I want to be better. I want to upskill. I want to be stronger. And writing is a muscle. Writing, you only get better by doing. You have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I would dare say it's probably the same as pretty much any skill you take or any industry you turn your hand to. You get better and better and better by doing. It's almost so obvious to seem kind of idiotic to have to say it out loud, but it's true. So I write prolifically, constantly. One of the things I'm on a writing course at the moment, which actually the first one's actually been of any worth to me because it's actually really, really good, this guy. And one of the things is on intuitive writing, where the exercise is to grab a magazine or something that's not a book or anything particularly predictable. It could be like BBC Food or whatever. I did this the other day. You open it onto a random picture, and whatever you see, you just iterate. You just start writing, okay? And you don't think. You're basically switching off your conceptual mind and doing your intuitive mind. So no one's ever going to read it. It could be utter crap. It could be really good. It could be whatever. But the idea is that you get into a flow. So I opened this page up onto some asparagus, and I nearly went off it. I was like, no, I don't like that. No, I was like, it doesn't matter what it is. The whole point is that it's just something, and then you write. So then I just write, oh, right, asparagus, and I just started writing, and then I talking about having my smelly pee and things like that, and then flowing into something else, and then the word flow going with smelly pee, and then I just anyway. But basically, I was about 5 minutes doing this, and then I stopped and I reread it. And then when I reread it, I'm already going like, oh, that was kind of funny, or that's random and pointless. And I already start thinking about, oh, how do I change this? How do I make this better? No, that's conceptual mind. Leave it alone. The whole point is, I had to spell check though, because that's just my, my pedantic brain. But it was a really good exercise because it teaches you to completely take away any sense of your conceptual mind focusing on something and just allow whatever's inside you just to come out, right? And it helps you with structuring stories and dialogue and things like that because you work much more naturally and much less. The second you put, and it's like anything, you ask someone to walk in a straight line, suddenly they're like, well, wobbly. So the second you start thinking about something, you can ruin your ability to it. It's why stand-up comedy is something I'm doing at the moment because I want to get better for comedy writing, things like that. And I'll just literally do any challenge apparently. The thick skin comes in very handy for me there as well. But that's why that can be so daunting. Right, get up on stage and be funny. Oh my God, really? Okay. But in a conversation, when you're talking to people and you're just naturally flowing stuff, you can be really funny. Anyone can. It's that kind of idea. So I've really gone around the houses here to kind of answer your question, but I'm trying to just show that for me at this stage, I'm literally taking my own experiences and my own, it's this practice what you preach thing, and I am taking it into the writing world, and so I say scripting world, film and TV, and I'm already learning what I love and what I don't love. And that thing I said before about the university degree, about how I fell off because there's certain things I just didn't want to do, I'm now finding it in this world, because when you're writing, stories and stuff, I want to write scripts, I want to do this sort of stuff. But then when it comes to like story design and storylining, I'm kind of like, I kind of like writing by the seat of my pants, But the second I do the storylining, second I do the bit that I don't necessarily want to do, oh my God, it makes the rest of it easier. It makes the rest of it flow. I just need to grow up on that side of things. So stay tuned on that. But I think that for anyone,
Sounds exciting.
yeah, well, I hope so. You haven't read my scripts. Um, I'm doing my best to network and make that a thing, and make this happen for myself. Like I did, like if I turn around at 21 and said I want to be a 3-time Olympian, I'm sure most people would have said, well, that ain't going to happen, mate. Good luck, And here I am now. So now me saying I want to be a storyteller, I want to be a scriptwriter, and I want to get a TV show. I want to get staffed on a TV show. I want to write my own and create my own. Well, you know what? Why the fuck not? Sorry if I realize I've
It's all
actually been
right.
quite good
It's all
today,
right.
but I swear
This
I've
is,
abandoned. So I'm
this
keeping it
is
under
for
control.
over 18. You're okay.
Oh, okay, sound. Oh, right. Well, I'll drop some more F bombs then. Maybe a
Yeah.
C bomb for good measure. No, so I like I said, I'm moving into a new world now, and I think that you have to. There's all this stuff. It's none of these are original thoughts. There are no original thoughts anymore. It's just taking your perspectives as far forward as you possibly can to make them relate to people as much as possible. And the big ones for me are things like to get to the truth, you have to, one of the things was, I don't even know who said this, but it's like to get to the truth, you have to risk being wrong, right? You have to risk being, making mistakes and everything. And people are very frightened to do that these days, particularly in the writing world, certainly comedy world, because of cancel culture and all these sorts of things. And I think generally, if you've got good interests in your heart and you want to do well and you want to be funny and you want to do this stuff, you kind of, every now and then you might make a mistake. You might make a joke that someone could say is punching down on somebody, or you might do something that's a little bit left field. But you need to be able to do that. You need to be human. You need to have room to do this stuff. Otherwise, you will never. It kills creativity. Anything like any fear of upsetting people will kill creativity. And I think sometimes that sort of sentiment is, I don't know, I think bad actors will kind of interpret that as, oh, you just want to say something racist. And I'm like, no, obviously there are things that people know is an absolute boundary line. You just like, you don't do, unless there's justified context for it. Maybe you've got a racist character. I don't know. But you can't create a racist character, have them say something racist, and then be scared to do that. Like the whole point is, oh, no, but I'm not. I'm creating. You're creating a story. You're creating, because that's not reality. We don't live in a utopia. We don't live in, as much as I think some people might. I think some of the biggest cognitive dissonance we struggle with these days is people are desperately trying to make the world an easy place to live, and it's not. Like obviously we want to make things better and we want to do well, but ultimately life is profoundly difficult, much more so for there's obviously grades to this. There are people in parts of the world where life is an abject horror, and for many of us that live in the privileged Western world that we live in, we sometimes forget that actually how lucky we are. But we are also still here, in a body that will decay and die, not of our choice, and hopefully all of us will just do our best to think on the short time that I'm here, whether you believe in God or anything, you just try to shine a bit of a light in the short time that you were here in the dark, so that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. So when I write my silly scripts, I just want to tell a story that's going to make people laugh or make people think or make people like. My real goal is I feel like I want to move people. That's my thing. And that sounds very, very, very wanky. And I said about Bobsleigh Gandhi, and I didn't want to be, but it sounds like I am now. But when I say move people, I don't mean that in some grandiose sense. I just mean that appeals to me. I want to make people laugh. I want people to feel good. I want to make people feel sad, with the right context, in the same way that I do when I'm watching TV. There's certain TV shows, certain storylines or certain character relationships that hit me straight. They tend to be male relationships, father-son type things, right about what you've dealt with, right? I challenging stuff with my dad growing up. And so if I see, male relationships like father-son reconciliation, brotherly reconciliation, anything like that, oh my God, I'm balling. Like it gets me every time. But that's a great thing. It's helping, that sort of stuff is helping me be in touch with understand myself a bit better and things. And so I kind of want to be a part of that. That's what I want to do. And that's why when someone says, oh, but you can do this athlete career transition into, I don't know, fucking British Gas and they're going to pay you 60K a year. I'm like, well, that sounds lovely. I'll pay my mortgage, but it's not, it's not exactly lighting my fire. Obviously I'll tell them that it is to get the job, but no, I like I said, and it's why I want to have a crack at this comedy thing. And it's why I do feel very acutely aware of this. I've always felt very aware of the life is short thing, people say it, and then people try to go the other way and go, no, life's long, and like, it is and it isn't, right? I mean, I'm sure you feel like it was 5 minutes ago you were in your 30s. It feels like 5 minutes ago I left school, and I know I'm going to blink and I'm going to be 40, and then I'm going to be 50, and then I'm going to be 60, and I don't want to look back and be like, God, when I was in my mid-30s, I was finishing sport. I loved comedy. I wanted to do it, but I didn't. And why didn't I actually do it? Because I was scared that people would think it was crap, or because I was scared of being up on stage and no one laughing. Why did that stop me doing it when the evidence is every single comedian, everyone with any sort of success ever has stood up on stage and had nobody laugh? Every single person has been through that. You have to develop and find that thick skin. You have to have that desire to be better. You have to have that insatiable hunger for improvement. And that's what I would say I have. And I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky to have that. I think you can develop it like any other skill. But if you I like, for again, I know I've gone around the houses here, but I hope people are getting a through line in what I'm saying. But like I said, when I write knowing that all writing is rewriting. I write knowing that this is probably rubbish, even though I feel like it's good at the time. But I need people who are better than me, who are funnier than me, who are, and that could be anyone. It doesn't have to be professionals. It could be my family. It could be my wife. Sometimes she picks up on stuff and it's like, that's much funnier than what I wrote. You have to be thick-skinned about it. You have to see it as you're never going to get it all right on your own. It's a collaborative process, whether you like it or not. And I love that. And like I say, I just love the idea that when someone gives me some feedback, even if I disagree with it, the pot that it's all in the serving of, it's all to serve getting better. It's all to serve improving, because it's all I want. If you're somebody who cannot take criticism, if you can't take feedback, you end up being just one of those horrendous people no one wants to be around, and you never go anywhere, you never grow, and your writing certainly never evolves or changes. I sit in this course actually. I'm just finish this final point, but in this course, like, I'm on a course with like 30 other people, and it's this Hollywood scriptwriter guy who's teaching everybody, and it's great. I've already learned a ton. And it's funny when he does so it's on a Zoom call like this, and when he's interacting with you, everyone else is the fly on the wall. You're just sitting there quietly waiting, right? And it's incredible to me when I see these people who are, and it's always the ones who aren't very good, which is always fascinating. There's a couple of people on this thing who are talented, definitely, and they already work in film. Maybe they're trying to improve their script writing, and they'll have written like the little assignment, little 4-page script assignment, and he's kind of tearing it apart and going, here's where this, how to make conflict better and all these sorts of things. And you can see them nodding and going, okay, it's great. All right. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, cool. And like, well, actually I did it like this, and it's very collaborative, but they're very open to the feedback. They're very open to the criticism. And I've read, and because the assignments go out in all the emails, so you read each other's, right? And I read these people, this guy and this girl, and they're like, and I thought they were great. But you can see them taking the feedback. And then this next lady came up, and what I'd read was the worst script of the lot. Like, it was just awful. Like, they talk about exposition, right? Show, don't tell in script writing. Don't, it's kind of going the other way now, because people are on their screens. Everyone's complaining about this, saying, oh, Netflix is dumbing down content because people are on their screens. So now it's like a bank robber will burst into a bank saying, I'm a bank robber and I'm here to rob the place. So then when someone's on their mobile going, oh, right, it's a bank robber, right, I don't have to pay attention. You know what I mean? Like, so there is a dumbing down element. But yeah, this lady's script was very much like that. And it was very like overly wordy, like on the nose. We're in a conflict and this is an argument we're having and things like that. And you're like, oh my God. Anyway, he was giving the feedback and she was just like, yeah, no, I just think that this was, I think I did hit the brief actually. I think you're making this. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, she's really firing back here. And it was absolute rubbish. So it is curious how it always seems to be. And it's the same in sport. It's always the ones who aren't really good enough who are the ones who make the most noise about not getting their chance, not getting their opportunity, or these sorts of things. There is a, I'm trying to think now what this is. This might sound terrible, but I feel like there is an unearned arrogance in mediocrity that I find so fascinating. And all the people who aren't mediocre, who are extremely good at what they do, are probably the ones who are the most insecure, the most self-conscious, the most please tear my stuff apart. I'm absolute rubbish. I'm a piece of shit. You know, they just want to get better. And but there's utility to that neuroticism. You know, it's like they say in like psychiatry, on the spectrum of character disordered people who are basically psychopaths who see no fault in anything they do ever, to all the way down to neurotics at the other end who believe that they're at fault for every woe in the world. There's a spectrum there, and the people who skew towards neuroticism tend to do better in therapy because they're more willing to accept that maybe they're at fault here, whereas the character disordered people are more willing to go, it's everybody else's fault and I'm the victim, sort of thing. I'm
Yeah.
sure we all know people like that.
100%. I mean, your language is fascinating, and I think there's so many lessons for people in business to take away. So, you're talking about your hunger for improvement.
Mm.
Something that I think is really important to me, and a lesson that I've learned from a therapist, is you talk the evidence is. The evidence is actually, you know what, times may be tough, but actually you've got through it. So, go back to what the evidence is. And I love that. I think you're spot on. Life of no regrets. I mean, I've had loads of shit in my life. I think people know my story now. Most probably bored of it. Losing my granddad, losing my dad, losing my wife, all passing away. Um, and life is short. So, doing everything, have fun, enjoying it, make the most of every single day. And you will have ups and you will have downs, and you've certainly had loads of ups and downs. But also, being better, in everything you do. Massive lesson there. And it sounds like you've got loads of goals. And, maybe, I don't know, do you have a vision board or something like that that you can see, that you look at to decide that this is what you want to do and where you want to get to?
I don't, I've never really done the whole vision board thing. And you know what, I sometimes wonder as well if that's partly because, so I learned that I don't dream like normal people apparently. So this is from my upbringing. This is from me and my brother. So me and my brother shared a room till we were like 16 or something, until my parents finally got an extension put on the house and we could have our own room. But the best thing about that was we used to go to sleep every night, and we used to ask each other what we were going to dream about. And so to me, I know dreaming is. I know how most people think about dreaming, which is when you're fast asleep and you're all sorts of mad, vivid stuff's going. You wake up, God, that was a weird dream. But I also have a secondary definition I've realized, which is that I'd call it dreaming. It's basically imagining, visualizing, daydreaming, essentially. But before I fall asleep, I close my eyes and I'm imagining all sorts of amazing stuff. I'm imagining winning the Olympics. I'm imagining winning the lottery. I'm imagining just fun little things I think might be nice to happen, right? And I asked my wife about this. I said, what are you going to dream about tonight? She was like, what are you talking about? This is like not that long ago. She's like, I don't know, some mad thing when it happens. I was like, no. I mean, like now, when you close your eyes, what are you going to be like thinking about? She's like, nothing. I clear my head and fall asleep. I was like, what? I couldn't understand. And I started asking all my mates, and I was like, do you lot close your eyes and like dream about, like, picture like cool things happening, or imagine like, dreaming, but like that, basically daydreaming until you fall asleep? But like, no, God, I wouldn't fall asleep. I clear my head, and I was like, oh my God, since I was young, I've been basically manifesting, or like whatever the people are calling it now, or creatively visualizing the things I want in my life. And I wonder if that's why I've never felt like I needed vision board. I'm sure like a vision board would actually be quite useful, because having actually a physical thing I could see, I actually definitely see the utility in that. But I think because I've just always, every night I've gone to bed, I've dreamed about whatever my latest madcap idea was. Like the stand-up comedy thing. I'm dreaming about myself live at the Apollo, killing, like, knocking people out, left, right, and center, crowd work, doing absolutely fantastically. My script's been taken greenlit by Netflix, or by Apple, and everything. I'm just dreaming all this stuff. Yeah, and I think that's probably why I've never, and I don't know any, apart from my brother, I don't know anyone else who does this. Like, because everyone else I've asked have gone, no, I clear my head when I go to bed, because I try to clear my head. And so the problem is that I don't fall asleep because my mind is whirring. And I don't mean your mind. I don't mean when you lie in bed, close your eyes, and you're thinking about all the traumatic things that are going on in your life. Like, oh my God, I've got this work deadline, and you can't switch off. No, I'm talking fanciful dreaming about the things you want to happen. Like the project's stressing you out. You're dreaming that you've just nailed it and it's got in on time. Your boss loves it. And you're getting a promotion. You get a pay rise. It can be completely unrealistic, but it's just nice. And it's it's part of, yeah, I think something that I've always done. So if anyone's listening who doesn't do that, I'd recommend it. Give it a go. It's wicked. Imagine you won the
Great.
Eurovision. Just think what you do with it. Think about the houses you buy. Think about all the friends you'd help. Like, it's just lovely. You fall asleep feeling great.
Okay. I know what I'm doing tonight then. Right, a couple final questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
You talked when you got went to Bobsleigh about raising standards around you and
Hmm.
also having a positive impact on people.
Hmm.
So in business, how do you think you can get people to raise the standards around them with their team and having that positive impact on their team, on people they work with?
I think this is a great question because it's for me it's layered because it delineates between leaders and people who are um, in the team, as it were, who are either more junior because they're new, or because they're working their way up, or because they're quite happy with their level, whatever it might be. From a junior perspective, raising standards around you is great, not just for obviously the people around you. It is amazing for you. It is amazing for you to feel that value in yourself because of the example you set. So even if you are of a junior, lowly standard in a thing, the harder you work and the work ethic you have eventually tends to get recognized. And if it doesn't get recognized because you're in a toxic company, you just move and you go somewhere else where it is recognized. And I've got so many friends who are like this, who were leading by example, but it was a horrible environment. They moved department, bomb, they're flying, and they've gone because they stayed true to themselves. And staying true to that knowing that your values are based in work ethic, are based in doing right by you, making sure that you need to be good to yourself as well. Um, but doing right by others and knowing that you are a valuable team member, you fundamentally bring value, is critical in again bouncing away imposter syndrome by fueling self-worth and giving you a solid foundation to kind of keep stepping up the ladder and keep doing things. From a leadership perspective, if you're the owner of the company, or you're the man in charge or woman in charge, you're the person who sets the vision. You're the person who lays out the dream, basically. And it is your responsibility to be able, by your seniority, to be able to communicate that vision effectively. It is your responsibility to make sure that the people that are junior to you get what's going on in this company, or with this latest project, or with this latest campaign, or whatever it is you're working on. It is absolutely your responsibility to lead by example. And that means that you're outside of the banal normal things, just being on time, being respectful, all those basic soft skill human things. It's do you sit back and let people speak? Do you allow people to feel listened to and feel heard and everything? There's a famous things, whatever people think of Simon Sinek, I don't know, but he's got a cool, I think it was a book actually, but it's a phrase that leaders eat last, that sort of thing. And it's so true. It's something that's always an approach I've had in certainly in bobsleigh. I've always made sure I've never done anything that I've never asked anyone to do anything I wouldn't have done myself. Even when I was a more senior athlete sort of thing, you're always trying to set the example and be like, this is what you want to do. Because when you go, or when you move on, or where you do anything, you want to leave behind you a legacy of good behavior fundamentally, so that the organization doesn't collapse when you leave. And unfortunately, you're always going to come across difficult people who'll be threatened by that, who'll be threatened by people who are perhaps more compassionate than others. And they'll try and tear that down. And you just got to be strong and stay sturdy in your values. And like I said, if you've been somebody who is trying to set a good example, because you're also setting an example for your future self, you want to be able to look back and go, I've got to where I am now because of the foundations I put in, because I was a reliable person, because I worked hard for people. I didn't take credit for things that I didn't do. I was always pushing for excellence in whatever I did. And there might be people who laugh at that or roll their eyes or whatever, because they're working in an industry where they feel like, well, I'm just doing this job for a paycheck. Cool, that's fine. Yeah, do it for a paycheck. But why not do it the best you possibly can? Because ultimately, if you start doing, it's like you see this quiet quitting thing in some of the big corporates. And again, I understand it for places where people aren't feeling particularly valued, or because it's an absolute giant and they feel like what they do is pretty immaterial. It's still not good unless you've got a full justification, because you've either got a side hustle you're wanting to move into, and actually you're kind of stepping away from this thing because there might be context around why you're quite quitting. Of course there will be. But for some people, if they just think it's because they just can't be asked, because they're just a bit jaded and fed up and everything, I understand that, especially the way the world's been post COVID and things like that. But it's not good for you. It's not good for you to give up. Even if you hate the thing you're doing, do it well, you will get it back in spades for what it does for you. Like I said, for your value, your self-value, your self-worth, knowing that you can still work hard at something. Because, and it doesn't matter, like, even if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not making, it's not like it's not like it's my business or it's making money for me or anything. It's like, well, no, it is making money for you. It's you're getting your paycheck and you're paying your bills, you're paying your mortgage, you're buying your food, you might be supporting your family. Those are noble things. Those are great things. Even if you feel like the job's crap and you don't like it or anything like that, then, look somewhere else, but don't give up on who you are as a person and the value and the work and what you want to bring to that organization, because that's you. And when you do leave, you'll take that with you. You take that person you are. If you're a quitter, you take that as well. And that's just, and I'm sure a quiet quitter who's staunch in their position would probably be quite fun to debate on that. But that's just it, loosely, as I
look through a screenplay on that then now. I think you've got the next title of your play.
Don't be a quiet quitter.
Final question.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of people that have been a big help in your life. So I can't remember Alan Wells' wife's name, but also Margot and Linford Christie. Power of having mentors in your life. How have they helped and what difference do they make?
Mentors are huge because for not just because they're of a stature that inspire you to be like them, because they're human beings. They're not infallible and they'll make a lot of mistakes. They also, in some circumstances, can inspire you exactly what not to be like. And I definitely had that experience, and I won't say with who, but I definitely had. I learned. I don't. My experiences, not just with those two coaches. I had other coaches as well. Going to Bobsleigh, phenomenal, some phenomenal sprint and bobsleigh coaches, but they're all flawed, as we all are. And I think that you need to take the positive lessons from those people to get the most out of the industry or the context or the goal or whatever it is that you're going for. The goal is the key. You need to identify your North Star. That is your goal. That's your flag in the sand. What are you trying to achieve? And, and like I said, you could probably take mine to, oh, well, I want to write a script that gets greenlit by Apple. Well, yeah, God, that would be amazing. But is that my North Star? Is that what's keeping me on track? No, it's one of my goals, but what is my North Star? And I take it back to when I really drilled it down. It was this moving people thing. I want to move people. I want to make people laugh. I want to make people cry. I want people to be happy, sad. I want them to feel through storytelling. And that's why I feel like when I have all the imposter syndrome stuff about and the self-doubt about doing stand-up, oh my God, I'm Bobsleigh doing stand-up. No one's going to laugh at this, script writing. No one's going to read my silly words. Like, I haven't done a degree. I've got no academic background. No one's going to want to see what I've done. I've not done a proper course. All these sorts of things. I can bat all that away because the goal, the North Star's there. And when it comes to mentors, you are going to have people who are wonderful in so many ways, flawed in so many ways, and you have to be. And this is probably my biggest advice, because I am so averse to gurus. Anyone that speaks with certainty or thinks that they're a guru on something and, oh, I'm the person for writing or I'm the person for this, tread very, very carefully. And all of my coaches, you could probably turn around to each of them. Now, not necessarily all of them. One of them was like this, but not all of them. You could turn around and go, well, they're such experts in their field. They are gurus. They know everything. No, they don't. They don't. They know a lot. They know enough to have had great success, but they do not know everything, because for every good coaching mentor you can find another one who knows more than they do, and vice versa, right? So you have to be able to take the value from what they give you and not tie it up too much into some deified vision of this person, which I could have had with Linford. It's Linford Christie. He was one of my heroes, and things like that. But I know him as L, and I know his strengths, I know his flaws, I know all the best things and good things and the worst things about him, and certainly as a mentor, as a coach, he was wonderful for me. And he gave me such confidence, and he was, fantastic in so many ways. But there were also things he did that I wouldn't have done, and I wouldn't have gone, trodden that path and everything. So you take the best of it, and you work out. I think if you can do well to find a mentor who really has your true best interests at heart, that's a very special place to be. But even then, it's your ultimate North Star, I suppose, in this context, should always be self-sufficiency. It should be being in a place where it's a mentor is a nice to have, and it's a great thing for somebody to be giving you the benefit of their wisdom for the certain thing that you're doing, but that you can take, absorb, use and apply and go and be better. That's fantastic. don't overplay it. And then also hope that it bolsters your knowledge enough and foundation that you can mentor one day, safe in the knowledge that you are also a flawed human being, and that the person you mentor, you try your very, very best to only give them the best of you and not all the flawed stuff as well, because they're going to be getting enough other flawed people in their lives to learn from. They don't need to learn from yours and everything. And I think sometimes coaches or mentors can make it more about themselves than about the people they're mentoring. And it's coaching 101. It ain't about you, it's about the athlete, and there are still so many professional coaches who will hit the roof, flip their lid if you left, if you move to another coach or anything like that, and because they take it personally. Whereas athletes sometimes are on a different journey. They need to find their way. You need to have that ability to detach, but some just don't. And that's why I'd always say just be very wary of gurus, be wary of anyone that speaks with certainty. Keep your North Star at the center, keep your goal at the center. What is the thing you're trying to achieve? Take the best of those things, take the best of people more experienced than you, and use it to try and achieve the best way you can. And then, like I say, do the best you can as the years wind by to help the next generation come through. In the writing world, finding people who are pay it forward is now an impossible, because you're diluting the pool. It's already a tough industry. People don't really want to help you. But I've met a couple of people, and one man in particular, a bloke called Brian Kirkwood, who I will shout out, who is just the most. He's an EastEnders soap writer. Now, he was like executive producer he's always been around soaps. The executive producer for Hollyoaks for years, and he's done EastEnders and all these sorts of things. He's now a writer on EastEnders, and he lives near me. He trains at the gym I train at, and we were put in touch. And I was expecting him to basically like have a conversation, talk to me about writing a bit. See you later, nice to meet you. He's been fully like, he loves my ideas. He wants to work with me on this one particular idea, and he gives me his time, and we chat and we work on stuff. And he gives me advice, and it's fantastic. It's really, really, really good. So, I found it in the end, but you've got to, again, cut people some slack as well, and just, we're all trying to get by. But yeah, I think that's about the best I can kind of riff on mentors. I hope that was okay.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you for being a fantastic guest. It's been a real honor and privilege.
No, my pleasure, honestly. Thank you for having me.
I look forward to seeing your stuff on Netflix and Apple, and you being live at the Apollo with Michael McIntyre. So for everybody watching, thank you very much. Please share it, like it, and until the next time, have a good day, everybody. Bye bye.